Maren Holt was 41 and had spent most of her life being the person everyone leaned on without ever asking if she was tired. She was a systems analyst from Baltimore, dependable to the point of invisibility, the kind of woman who answered yes before a request fully landed. On the last Friday of the year, she arrived early at the annual family dinner held at a place called the Ember Table, a brick-walled restaurant glowing with amber lights and thick garlands of pine and dried oranges. Cinnamon and wood smoke clung to the air. Maren smoothed the sleeve of her navy dress and scanned the room out of habit, already calculating who would need what. Her parents came first, as always, her mother chattering about traffic while her father surveyed the room like it owed him something. Minutes later, her younger sister Paige swept in with her 3 kids, voices loud, coats flung over chairs, energy spilling everywhere. Maren's daughter, Lucy, stayed close to her side, fingers curled into Maren's coat as if anchoring herself. "Can I sit next to you?" Lucy whispered. "Of course," Maren said quickly, brushing Lucy's hair behind her ear. The moment felt familiar, almost scripted, like a play they'd all memorized. Even the fireplace crackled on cue. Maren told herself it was just another dinner, just another year ending, but a strange tightness sat behind her ribs, as if something had been waiting a long time for this exact night. Before anyone opened a menu, a server approached with a bright smile. "Good to see you again, Miss Holt," he said warmly, setting a thick leather-bound menu in front of Maren. "Your usual?" Her father's head snapped up for half a second, eyes widening before he looked away. Paige's smile stiffened, her lips pressed thin. Lucy stared at the leather menu with open curiosity. "That's fancy," she murmured. "You can look later," Maren said gently, sliding it just out of reach. Orders began flying around the table. Paige's oldest announced he wanted lobster, like last time, while another argued for king crab, their voices overlapping. "They love seafood," Paige said with a laugh that didn't quite land. Maren's father leaned across the table, his tone suddenly sharp. "Make sure Lucy orders something cheap," he said, not lowering his voice. "We're not covering her tonight." The words landed hard. Lucy froze, her shoulders drawing inward. The fire popped loudly, and for a moment Maren felt the air thin, like the room had tilted. She watched Lucy's eyes drop to the table, fingers twisting in her napkin. Something inside Maren shifted. It wasn't anger exactly, it was recognition. This was the pattern. This was always the pattern. She felt it like a latch sliding open, a quiet click that said, "Enough." She inhaled slowly, the scent of cinnamon suddenly overwhelming, and realized she had reached a place she could not step back from. Maren had been the steady one since childhood. Straight A's, weekend shifts, scholarships stacked like stepping stones. Paige, on the other hand, had been handled with gentler hands. When Paige crashed their father's SUV at 16, everyone blamed the weather. When she quit college, it was finding herself. Maren drove the same sedan for 12 years because it was practical, while Paige was handed keys to something new. Maren remembered graduating with her engineering degree after years of night classes and exhaustion, scanning the crowd for her parents and finding only a text. So proud. "Sorry, we're abroad." They were somewhere in Europe with Paige, posting photos. Later, when Maren's career stabilized, the calls began. "It's just this once," her mother would say. Roof repairs. Tax trouble. Paige's car almost repossessed. Maren sent the money every time, quietly, keeping a spreadsheet she never showed anyone. It wasn't about accounting, it was proof she existed. Proof she contributed. Sitting at the Ember table, she looked at her father, then at Paige, then at Lucy, still silent. She heard her partner Noah's voice in her head, calm and careful. "You're allowed to say no." At the time, she'd laughed. Now, the laughter felt very far away. Lucy broke the silence softly. "Mom, I can just get fries," she said, trying to sound brave. Maren's chest tightened. She reached for Lucy's hand under the table. "No," Maren said evenly. She looked up at the server, who had returned with a notepad. "We'll split the checks," Maren said. "Put mine and Lucy's together. The rest on my parents' card." The table went still. Her father stared at her like, She'd spoken another language. Her mother's practiced smile faltered. Paige's eyes narrowed, sharp with something unspoken. Marin, her father began, but the server nodded, already writing. Of course, he said. Chairs scraped as Marin stood. She slipped Lucy's coat on, movements calm, deliberate. We're leaving, Marin said, not unkindly. Lucy's hand squeezed hers, small but steady. Outside, cold air rushed over them. Noah waited by the car, opening the door for Lucy. Hey, superstar, he said gently. Lucy smiled just a little. Marin slid into the passenger seat, heart pounding, and said out loud, to no one and everyone, I'm done. The words didn't echo. They settled. The drive home was quiet except for the hum of the road. Lucy watched the streetlights pass. Marin pulled out her phone and began untangling the threads she'd been holding for years. She canceled the credit card tied to her parents. She shut off the streaming accounts, the club dues, the lawn service she'd never seen. Each confirmation felt like a small breath she hadn't known she was holding. The next day, Paige asked to meet for coffee. She looked tired, defensive. Marin laid the printed spreadsheet on the table. Paige's eyes widened as she flipped through pages. I didn't know, Paige whispered. Marin sipped her coffee. You never asked, she said quietly. That night, Marin muted the family chat and sat on the couch while Lucy practiced her violin. Weeks passed, strange and quiet, but steady. One evening, Lucy played her entire piece, without stopping. Noah recorded, smiling. Marin clapped, laughing, warmth spreading through her chest. This piece wasn't borrowed. It was hers. In the days after the dinner, Marin noticed how quiet her phone had become. No buzzing with requests, no late-night messages framed as emergencies. At first, the silence made her uneasy. She caught herself reaching for the phone, expecting it to light up. Noah noticed and said gently, You're allowed to rest, you know. Marin nodded, but didn't fully believe it yet. One afternoon, her mother called anyway. Marin let it ring twice before answering. Are you really cutting us off? Her mother asked without greeting. I'm not cutting anyone off, Marin replied calmly. I'm just not paying anymore. There was a pause, then a sigh heavy with disappointment. We did our best, her mother said. Marin looked out the window at Lucy riding her bike in small, careful circles. I know, Marin said. And now I'm doing mine. She ended the call before it turned into an argument. That night, Lucy asked, Are Grandma and Grandpa mad? Marin considered the question. They might be confused, she said honestly. But that's not your job to fix. Lucy nodded, absorbing it quietly. Later, Noah cooked dinner while Marin helped Lucy with homework. The house felt smaller but warmer, like everything unnecessary had been gently moved out. Paige tried again a week later, sending a long message that began with "We're family" and ended with "You're hurting Mom and Dad." Marin read it twice, then showed it to Noah. What do you want to say? He asked. Marin thought carefully. She typed slowly. I'm not hurting anyone. I'm choosing balance. I hope you can respect that. Paige replied almost immediately. You've always been dramatic. Marin felt the familiar sting but let it pass. She didn't respond. Instead, she closed the app and sat with Lucy on the couch. Lucy leaned against her and said, I like it when it's quiet. Marin smiled. Me too. At work, Marin felt lighter. She focused better, laughed more. A coworker noticed and said, You look different. Marin shrugged. I dropped something heavy. That weekend, Noah suggested a hike. As they walked, Lucy skipped ahead, talking about school and music. Noah reached for Marin's hand. I'm proud of you, he said. Marin squeezed back, surprised by how much the words mattered. She realized that for the first time, her life wasn't arranged around avoiding disappointment. It was arranged around living. A month passed, then another. The family messages slowed, then stopped. Marin's father sent one short email. We're disappointed. Marin read it, felt the old ache, then closed it without replying. She talked it through with Noah that night. I keep waiting to feel guilty, she admitted. Noah shrugged. Maybe guilt isn't always the truth. Lucy overheard and asked, "What's guilt?" Maren smiled sadly. "It's when you think you did something wrong, even if you didn't." Lucy considered this. "Then I don't think you should have it," she said. Maren laughed, a sound that surprised her. At Lucy's next recital, only Noah and Maren were there, clapping loud enough for 10 people. Lucy bowed deeply, glowing. Afterward, she said, "It was better this time." Maren knew what she meant. That night, she updated her spreadsheet one last time, adding a final note at the bottom, "Closed." She saved it, then deleted the file. The proof was no longer needed. Spring arrived quietly. Maren planted herbs on the windowsill, something she'd always said she didn't have time for. Paige sent one more message, shorter this time. "I'm trying to understand." Maren replied with a simple "I hope you do." They didn't meet. It was okay. At dinner one evening, Lucy asked, "Will we ever go back to the Ember table?" Maren paused. "Maybe someday," she said. "But not because we have to." Lucy smiled. "Good." Noah raised his glass. "To choosing," he said. Maren clinked hers against his. She felt steady, rooted. The family she came from no longer defined the family she was building. And for the first time, that felt like freedom. As summer unfolded, Maren noticed how her body responded to peace. She slept better. Her shoulders no longer stayed hunched. She laughed more easily, even at small things, like Lucy's jokes or Noah's terrible puns. One evening, while washing dishes, she said aloud, "I used to think love meant endurance." Noah looked up. "What does it mean now?" She dried her hands. "Choice," she said, showing up without keeping score. Noah nodded. Lucy, overhearing, added, "And snacks." They all laughed. The sound filled the kitchen, easy and real. Maren's mother tried again near the end of summer, this time softer. "We miss you," she said. Maren believed her. "I miss parts of you too," Maren replied. "But I can't go back to how it was." There was silence, then a quiet, "I don't know how to do different." Maren felt compassion rise without surrender. "That's something you have to learn," she said gently. They ended the call without resolution, but without anger. It felt like progress of a different kind. Lucy started middle school and joined the orchestra. Maren attended every practice she could, sitting in the back with a book. One day, Lucy said, "I like that you come even when I mess up." Maren kissed her forehead, especially then. She realized she was giving Lucy what she'd never had, presence without conditions. The thought settled deep and warm. Paige eventually sent a photo of her kids at a soccer game. No request, no guilt, just a picture. Maren replied with a thumbs up and meant it. She didn't feel the urge to fix anything. Noah noticed and said, "You're really letting go." Maren nodded. "I finally trust myself." At work, Maren was offered a leadership role. She almost said no out of habit, then stopped. "Yes," she said, surprising herself. That night, she celebrated with Lucy and Noah over takeout and music. Lucy raised her glass of juice. "To Mom," she said proudly. Maren blinked back tears. Autumn returned, bringing crisp air and familiar smells. Passing the Ember table one evening, Maren felt no pull, no resentment, just memory. She kept walking, Lucy's hand in hers, Noah close by. One quiet night, Lucy asked, "Are we a good family?" Maren answered without hesitation. "Yes," she said, "because we listen, because we care, because we choose each other." Lucy smiled, satisfied. Maren sometimes thought about the girl she used to be, the one who earned love by being useful. She wished she could tell her, "You were always enough." The thought didn't hurt anymore. It healed. When winter came again, it felt different. Not heavy, not tense, just calm. They decorated their small living room with simple lights. Lucy played her violin by the window, steady and sure. Maren recorded the music this time. She didn't need proof, but she wanted memory. Noah squeezed her shoulder. "This is it," he whispered. Maren nodded. As the last note faded, Maren applauded, heart full. The peace she felt wasn't borrowed, wasn't fragile. It was built slowly. The holidays approached again, and Maren didn't dread them the way she used to. For the first time in years, the idea of family gatherings didn't fill her with anxiety. She and Noah discussed their plans, the weight of old traditions no longer looming over them. "What do you think?" Noah asked. "Do you want to see your parents this year?" Maren thought about it. For so long, the holidays had been a battleground, unspoken rules, expectations, and the unrelenting pressure to be everything to everyone. This year felt different. "I'm not sure," she said slowly. "Maybe, but it'll be on my terms." Noah nodded, understanding. The decision was hers, not anyone else's to make. That evening, as they hung stockings with Lucy, Maren felt a quiet sense of peace. The holiday season no longer felt like a test. It simply was, and she could choose what role she wanted to play. 2 days before Christmas, Paige called. It wasn't an apology, but it wasn't the usual message either. "I was thinking about last year," Paige said carefully. "And I guess how things changed." Maren stayed silent, letting her sister speak. "I know I was a bit harsh," Paige continued, "and I never understood why you did what you did. But I see now, maybe you were just protecting yourself. I've been thinking about that a lot." Maren swallowed, the words sitting in her chest. "I was," she replied softly, "and I needed to." The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable, but filled with something else. Understanding, perhaps. "I'm still figuring it out," Paige added, "but I hope we can do better." Maren's heart didn't race. She simply nodded, even though Paige couldn't see. "I hope so too," she said. In time. On Christmas Eve, Noah surprised Maren with a small gift, a silver necklace with a simple pendant in the shape of a key. "It's for new beginnings," he said with a smile. Maren held it in her hand for a long moment, turning it over as the weight of the past year settled on her. A year of change, growth, and healing. She slipped the necklace on and felt its gentle pressure against her skin, a tangible reminder that she was unlocking something new within herself. Something that was hers. She felt the small, steady pulse of it, deep in her chest. The next morning, Maren and Noah woke early. Their little family gathered in their living room for the Christmas morning ritual. Lucy was the first one awake, her excitement filling the room before the sun had even risen. Maren watched her daughter with a quiet kind of awe. "You're my favorite Christmas present," she whispered as Lucy climbed into her lap. "I know," Lucy said with a grin, clearly proud of herself. Maren laughed, holding her tightly, feeling the warmth of this small, perfect moment. Noah joined them on the couch, his hand finding hers. There was no rush, no demands, just the three of them in their own little world, creating their own traditions, their own version of family. Later that day, Maren sat down to write a letter to her parents. She'd thought about it for weeks, but now, with the calm of the morning still lingering in her chest, the words came easily. She wrote honestly, without guilt or expectation, telling them that she loved them but needed space to grow. She thanked them for the lessons they had taught her, both good and bad, but made it clear that she would no longer tolerate being anyone's emotional support system at the cost of her own happiness. She ended the letter simply, "I hope we can find a way to heal together, but only when we are ready." She didn't expect an immediate response, but sending it felt like another small exhale, a release of a weight she hadn't known she was still carrying. In the weeks that followed, Maren felt the rhythm of her life shift even further. There was a quiet liberation in setting boundaries, a softness in saying no without apology. She and Noah started planning small trips, exploring new places without the looming stress of family obligations. Lucy's music continued to blossom, her performances growing in confidence. Maren attended every recital, every practice, always clapping the loudest, never taking a moment for granted. When Lucy told her that she wanted to play a solo at the spring concert, Maren couldn't stop the tears from welling up. "You can do anything," she said, her voice thick with pride. Lucy grinned. "I know. Thanks to you." Paige's messages became less frequent, but they were different. There was no more pressure, no more guilt. Just small updates, casual check-ins, and moments of connection. One day, Paige sent a picture of her kids decorating cookies. The kids wanted to do this instead of presents this year, she wrote. Maren smiled at the photo of the flower-covered kitchen and sent a simple reply. That's perfect. It wasn't an apology, nor was it an invitation to go back to how things had been. It was just an acknowledgement of the space between them, a mutual understanding that they were still family, even if things had to change. Maren and Noah took a weekend trip to the mountains in early spring, just the two of them. The weather was unpredictable, but the air felt fresh, full of possibility. On their last night, they stood on the porch, wrapped in blankets, watching the stars. We've come a long way, haven't we? Noah said quietly. Maren looked at him, her heart full. Yes, she said softly. We've made our own way, and I think it's just beginning. There was no rush, no timeline, just the feeling that they were finally living for themselves, without apology or explanation. A year after the dinner at the Ember table, Maren found herself standing in the same spot, but this time, she felt nothing but calm. The restaurant had changed, renovated with brighter lights and modern decor, but the space inside her had shifted even more. She wasn't the same woman who had walked out that night, her chest tight with frustration and quiet hurt. She was different, stronger, freer. She looked at Noah, who stood next to her, and then at Lucy, who was excitedly pointing out the different menu items. Let's stay for dinner, Maren said with a smile. This time, there were no unspoken rules to follow, no resentment in the air. Just a family, enjoying a simple meal together. For the first time, it felt right. As they sat down at the table, Lucy holding the special menu in her hands, Maren felt a sense of peace she hadn't known was possible. The past was still there, a part of her, but it no longer controlled her. She was building something new, with Noah, with Lucy, and with herself. She was finally, fully, enough. The waiter came over, and Maren smiled as she ordered, knowing that whatever came next, whatever family, whatever challenges, she would face them on her terms. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't have to prove anything. This was enough. The following weeks felt like a slow but steady current, carrying Maren deeper into a life she could claim for herself. The holidays were behind them, but the peace from that Christmas morning lingered. Lucy continued to excel in her music, gaining confidence with every note. She played with a grace that reminded Maren of the calm that had settled over their lives. Noah, too, seemed more at ease, no longer burdened by the uncertainty of past family dynamics. It was as though they were building a new foundation, one that had nothing to do with proving anything to anyone. The phone calls from her parents became less frequent, and Maren no longer felt the need to answer every time. There was a quiet strength in letting things unfold without force. Maren knew that healing wasn't linear, that there would still be moments when old patterns tried to creep in, when the weight of her past threatened to pull her under. But for the first time in a long time, she was prepared. One afternoon, her mother called again. Maren hesitated, then answered. "Hi, Mom," she said, her voice steady. "How are you?" There was an awkward pause on the other end, but her mother eventually replied, "We're okay. We're just adjusting." Maren felt the old familiar ache in her chest, but it didn't overwhelm her. "I understand," she said simply. "I've been doing a lot of adjusting too." The conversation was quiet, but the tone had changed. There was no anger, no resentment, just a shared understanding that things were different, and that was okay. When the call ended, Maren felt neither relief nor disappointment. It was just a conversation, as it should have always been. One Saturday, as spring began to unfurl its leaves and flowers around them, Maren and Noah took Lucy to the park. The sun was bright, the air crisp but warm. They watched Lucy race around, her laughter ringing through the air as she climbed trees and raced her bike. For the first time, Maren realized just how much she had missed out on while trying to please everyone else. She watched Noah push Lucy on the swings, both of them laughing, and a slow smile spread across her face. This, she thought, this is my life. And I'm finally living it the way I always should have. She felt the weight of her old burdens lift just a little more with every step, every joyful moment. Later that evening, they sat on the porch, the soft hum of the neighborhood around them. Lucy was inside, practicing her violin, while Marin and Noah shared a quiet dinner. Marin looked at Noah, her partner in every sense of the word, and smiled. "I think we've done something good here," she said, her voice soft but sure. Noah reached across the table, taking her hand. "We're still doing it," he replied, a hint of humor in his voice. There was no need for grand gestures anymore, no need to prove that they were enough. They already were. And that, Marin realized, was everything. They had built a life that was theirs, untouched by old expectations, and full of hope for what was still to come. As the months passed, the family dynamics that once defined Marin's existence became distant memories. She saw her parents on rare occasions, but there was no longer the weight of obligation hanging over them. They had found their own way, just as Marin had. Sometimes, when the seasons shifted, she would think about how far she had come, about the woman she used to be, and the woman she had become. And each time, she felt a deep sense of gratitude for the strength it took to get there. She wasn't perfect, no one was, but she was finally living her truth. She had given herself permission to be free, to say no, to let go, and most importantly, to choose her own path. And in that, Marin Holt had found the quiet peace she had been searching for all along. It was her life now, and it was enough.